I think it's happening. Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Adam Makes Beer. My name's Adam. Quick shout to anybody in the chat. When you get in, if you want to just give me the high sign, the old thumbs up, that audio is good and we're good to go. That would be fantastic. But super excited about this evening's episode. We have some cool stuff going on over at Adam Makes Beer. We are now a podcast. Super majority of you have found my stuff through YouTube. And just recently, I changed over the long form brewer interviews that we do, the Q&A. You can find the talk that I did on leadership at the Ohio Craft Brewers Conference, all on this podcast. And you can go to Spotify and Apple Podcasts in order to do that. If you do, please go ahead and give that a sub, a follow. And if you're so motivated, give it that, smash that 5-star rating. I've been told that I'm supposed to be asking people to smash the button, Rock. Rock, listen, if you're not, if you are listening on podcast, hopefully it's on Spotify, because Spotify will have the video, but you're gonna love what you're seeing.
Oh, good.
On the other half of the screen.
Good.
So yeah, please go ahead and check that stuff out on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Also, if you are new to the channel or podcast, go to Adam Makes Beer on YouTube, click the playlist tab and see tons of info. We have full on grain to glass, as some of the kids say, brew days. It's like you're in the brewery working alongside with me. We have technique videos, tutorial videos, over 400 videos now posted on that site. Go dig through the playlists on there. There's more information there than you can probably believe, because I can't believe how much crap I've put up there over the last 18 months. So that's been wild. So check that stuff out. Also, remember, on Tuesday, this is a little bit of a change up. If you've been following along with us, you know that we do a monthly live stream Q&A where I take listener questions and talk those out. This is a little bit of a change up due to my schedule, but we are going to be firing this thing off on a Tuesday, August 1st at 7 p.m. Not only that, but this is also the birthday episode. I thought I was turning 45 this year, but I'm turning 46. So that was a little bit of a wake-up call. But please be dropping those questions if you're in time, if you're listening to this in time to tune in for that live stream. Please drop your questions in there, and we will make that happen. And then today we are going to be talking with Brewmaster Rockne Van Meter from Redwood Steakhouse and Brewery. Many times over, heavily decorated. We're going to be talking about all things beer, maybe some things that you could see coming from talking to a guy like Rock, whether it be competitions or brewing Belgian beers. I know he's taken home tons of hardware for a wide range of styles, but we might even talk a little light lager. Listen, baby, it's hot out there. I don't know if you noticed. At least it is in Ohio. So it's hot out there, and it's light lager season, okay? So we're going to be hitting on a whole bunch of things. But before we get into the brewer interview, let's talk a little bit about my dear friends at Blickman Engineering. Blickman Engineering has been the pioneer of nano brewing, and they have helped hundreds of successful breweries achieve their dreams since they started with one-barrel systems in 2006. Now offering a full suite of brew houses up to 15-barrel skidded and insulated, matching cellaring equipment, keg washers, grain mills, and more, sized specifically for the nano brewer. Blickman Pro brewing systems are competitively priced without sacrificing quality, and the simple design and factory direct support from our brewing experts gets you up and running faster than anything else on the market. When you're ready to go pro or just kicking the tires, be sure to reach out to them for expert advice and a partner to help you through it all. Turn your dreams into a reality by reaching out to Phil, Tom, or Josh at ProSeries@BlickmanEngineering.com. That's ProSeries@BlickmanEngineering.com. Blickman Engineering Pro Brewing is proud to be the equipment sponsor for this channel and is committed to helping every brewer, no matter where they are in their journey. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by Rockne himself, Mr. Van Meter. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
You're looking great, man.
Thank you.
You look relaxed.
I am relaxed. I've been sleeping well lately.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good for you. You got a beautiful backdrop. I mean, you've got. It's not easy to beat the fireplace.
No, it's
and the bookshelf full of unread books that's behind me. But you've got
pull down like Sears, like the Sears, from the 70s. It's just a big thing.
You're in a basement. There's just tons of like empty paint cans behind you.
Yeah. There's nothing to see. This is
nothing to see here. Well, listen, man. This is for those of you that might not know. Actually, some people on the podcast side, if you started following Adam Makes Beer through podcast, you might know that the first podcast I have posted is with Rock, and that was in the early days. If you're looking at the quality of the video content I'm producing right now, and you're thinking this is terrible, you should have seen what I was doing a year and a half ago. This live stream went a little sideways. We were trying to utilize some different software, and things got wonky. And so it's a great conversation. You really should go and check that out. But this time we're dusting it off once again. A little bit better video, a little bit better audio, and we're gonna do our
slightly better video. That first one was a gem. I told you, should have just replayed that in its entirety.
Well, I listened to it the other day, and it is funny. I haven't really. Well, there's really only one person I've interviewed so far that I'm not close with, and so I listened back to that interview, man. It was just it was a bunch of fun. I hope there's some stuff for other people to enjoy out of it as well. But it was so much fun that for me, I almost felt like, wow, this was so great that I hopefully it just wasn't too like, I don't know, just like you and me hanging out. But then again, at the same time, I think that's also a good thing. So
yeah.
So,
sure. I don't even know what the hell we talked about last time. I assume it was beer related, right?
I mean, primarily, I would assume. I would assume. Yeah. And so I went back and I listened to kind of make sure that we didn't hit necessarily all the same stuff, but you know how it goes. So Rock and I, we probably talk a couple times a month, and most of the conversation is what we have going on at the brew house, what we're trying different, and I don't know, just kind of the new stuff we're working on, and bouncing ideas and techniques and approaches off each other. So I think it's important to have those to have those people, and I'm lucky to have them. So yeah, man. So let's start talking about beer, brother. You are okay. Let's what do you do? We'll start off like this. What are you drinking?
Mexican lager. The one we discussed in depth months ago. Yeah,
we really dove in on that. So I've been making it's been one of our biggest sellers. Yeah, if you're watching the video, man, his drinking vessel is next level. But we've been making an adjunct lager at Cartridge for, I don't know, probably 2 of the 3 years that we've been open. And it was kind of one of those things where we were making some different lagers, and we were looking at maybe trying to create a little bit of a footprint in the area as a place that, is a lager producing brewery. And we were doing a lot of traditional German stuff. And then we're like, well, listen, let's make something. Let's make an adjunct lager. So something down 4.2, 4.3, 13 IBU, stuff like that. Nice and light. And man, it really flew off the shelves for us. Whenever that beer is on tap, it's always at the top of the list. You throw a lime in it, and it just serves. How have you found that beer being received, at least through the lens of like sales wise? What are the sales telling you on putting that light lager up?
It's going pretty good. It's either our number 1 or our number 2, but if it's number 2, it's pretty close. Like it's very close. I started off as a Mexican lager on the menu, and then I was talking to a beer rep, and he thought, well, is it a spicy beer? Which made me think that might be throwing people off if they didn't read the description. Yeah,
Sure.
I had no thought of that. So I changed it to Redwood Light. Because
Okay.
in the past they had a Redwood Light beer on there, and
Sure.
it was a good seller. So I renamed it, and it hasn't really changed anything.
Yeah.
So either way, it's still a number. Usually a number one or number two. Number one is either a Kolsch or this Mexican light lager.
Sure. So I think that's interesting because I think Kolsch is one of those real classic lighter beers that you can put on because it kind of scratches that itch for the people that say, give me the lightest beer you have.
Yeah.
But it can also be, it can also be appreciated on kind of the nerd level too, right?
For sure.
Of really being able to dig in with that. So yeah, I think it's interesting that it's right up there toward the top, and I think it kind of speaks to how many people are still. And when I say "and still," I don't mean it to sound like I'm like I'm being insulting, but man, a lot of people out there drink yellow fizzy beer, man.
Yeah, most people do. Our best seller has always been the Kolsch, except for that one. It's always been our Kolsch. It's never been a stout or anything like that. It's always a Kolsch.
And that beer in that vessel looks is probably a little bit more golden than what it looks like because especially up by the calf. In the calf portion of the boot, you could stop rubbing it.
Well, quit talking. I'll quit rubbing.
But I remember you sent me some other pictures on. Yeah. Just beautiful, pale yellow, perhaps straw rock. Yes, how do we feel about straw there? Are you drinking it with? Are you drinking it with a lime tonight? Do you serve it with a lime at the brewery?
Yes, the lime at the brewery, but not tonight. I have them, but I just didn't do it. What
is your preference with that beer?
Lime.
Tell me why.
Lime. I don't know. Just because it's when I made it, that's the way I thought of drinking it. And I think it does add a little something because it's a super light beer. It's like 4%, 4.1, whatever it is. It's light. And the lime goes well with it. It was made to have lime as one of the ingredients.
Sure.
So that's how it was. That's how I had it in my brain. That's how I made it. That's how I think it tastes better. Whether you may or may not think so, or anybody else, I don't know, but I think it tastes better with.
So I think the interesting thing with the style like this, because this style is a little bit nebulous. There's some descriptors in not GABF, Brewers Association style guideline, but I think they go general and say that it can be an adjunct lager. I don't think they necessarily say it has to be corn, has to be rice, different things like that, or has to be dextrose or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah, in theory, it is supposed to have some of that adjunct in there to lighten that up. One of the things that I found when I went back, I forget how long ago it was, but I was drinking a Bud Miller Coors product, and it was like the light version of whatever. And I was surprised by how borderline sweet those beers were. It's because in my mind, there's so little bitterness in them. Like there's not, and maybe as people that are used to drinking craft beer, we're just used to a little bit more assertive bitterness. But when you talk about using that lime in there and kind of building that recipe, what kind of IBU do you have in that beer that's in front of you right now?
Calculated at 7.
Calculated at 7?
Yeah.
If that thing was like at 15 or 20, would it work as well with a lime, do you think?
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so either, man. Because I think it's, kind of the two classic balancers of sweetness in beer is, I think off the top, everybody thinks of bitterness, but then also tartness, acidity plays in there as well, right? Sure. And so I think one of the things that helps to make, even if I'm drinking like a light Bud Miller Coors product, if I'm drinking Corona because everyone expects it with Corona, and you can do the same thing with Bud Light, Miller Light, whatever. Having that little splash of lime in there, that little, oh baby, here we go.
Flop, flop, fizz, fizz, or something.
Yeah, man. So, having that little hint of acidity in there, I think actually plucks those beers up. And
Yeah.
I think you also get the benefit of, like, when you, and we're both cooking guys. We both enjoy cooking. When you squeeze that lime into that beer, you're also busting out some of those zest, that outer zest stuff that's going on. And really, for me, almost regardless of the citrus fruit, the zest always seems to be the thing that packs the most impact, that brings the most impact. You know what I mean? I just think it brightens it up, man. I absolutely love it in those beers.
Yeah, I think it makes it more drinkable, as opposed to just being some light fizzy thing. I think it gives it a lot of character.
Sure. Was there ever, well, because I can say for myself, there is a period of time in my brewing career where I would have said, oh, you want to put a lime in my beer, you can go straight to hell.
Yeah.
Have you ever, well, obviously you're not there now. I've seen you drink it with lime before. Were you ever there at that part in your career where you didn't want something like lime being served on your glass?
Sure. In the beginning, or close to the beginning of my professional and craft drinking career, that seemed like every Hefeweizen was served with an orange.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking Blue Moon. I mean, other stuff. And it was just like they plunk an orange on it.
Yeah.
And then the head would just go down to nothing. And it had like this orange thing on the rim. I never liked the fruit salad they threw in there.
Sure.
So no, not really. I mean, I think if it belongs in there,
sure,
for whatever reason, if it says this beer, like on our menu, it says served with a lime.
Sure.
So at least I know what's coming.
Sure.
But I mean, I don't know if it says it on there, and I go, I'd like to try that, then I would try that.
Sure.
But when it's just like like they ninja them and they plunk, a whole thing of fruit on the glass, it's always just annoyed me.
Sure. And I remember, for me, for a long time, it was a real purist thing. And I also think that it was, I don't know, me being a little too self-important about things. But,
yeah. I was on that high horse too with it. I was definitely with you. Like, oh, come on. Yeah. Don't you know? It's, they're just trying to sell a beer, like whatever.
Well, and the flip side is right now, man, like when people come into our spot at Cartridge and they see the lime on the edge of the glass, most people are like, what's the beer with a lime? Yeah. Or when we do our pina colada beer called Escape, the bartenders hate me. One, because I'm hateable, but two, because with Escape, they have to cut little pineapple wedges.
Oh, wow.
And so each one of those gets the pineapple garnish on it, and people walk in and they say, what's the beer with pineapple on it? And like, dude, honestly, it sells stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like, sure. and I think that's part of what's gotten me over it, is that I realized that I need people to buy the beer that I'm making. Right. And already let's be real, like, I'm making a pina colada beer with pineapple and coconut and lactose in it, and what I'm going to start getting high and mighty on style and history. You know what I mean? It's right. You kind of have to, you kind of just accept it at a certain point, right? But yeah, no. So I think that's one of the. I personally think it's a big part of the style for me.
Sure.
That light lager, Mexican lager, I think it kind of should be built for that lime.
Yeah.
But yeah. So,
no, let me ask you, Adam. Let me ask you.
Sure.
Are there any beers that you like? The hazy IPA thing. People, it's become a giant thing. But back in the day, it was like frowned upon to have that haze in your IPA. Mm-hmm. Do you see anything happening? Like, what could you see? But you say to sell beer, you'll put fruit in it, you put whatever you want, and I get that.
Sure.
What are there any thoughts in the future of like things that you just wouldn't do?
Gosh,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and I think it's a lot of it has been stuff that I have. It's just been stuff that I've refrained from doing. I personally am not big on having unfermented fruit going into package. And so for me, like, I know full well that I could take, 15, 20 boxes of puree. Each one of those boxes like 42 pounds or something. I could throw it into a bright tank. I could rack a blonde ale on top of it, and I could bubble CO2 through that thing as I keg that smoothie out.
Yeah.
And it would sell like crazy. Because other people are doing it. All right. That's one thing that I really struggle with, is the idea of especially putting unfermented fruit into a finished beer. Obviously there's the stability standpoint. You're throwing all that sugar into package, especially can, and bottle isn't as much as it used to be. But any small package, any non-keg, and even kegs, I'm not crazy about it. I feel like, I don't know. I tend to resist the things that I think are super gimmicks. And there's some things that I just think there are some things that I do because I think it needs to be on the menu. I don't think you have to do it with everything though. So yeah, for me, there is kind of a line, and for me, it's a whole bunch of, it's like the idea of making a 15% beer and then cutting it with fruit puree down to 7%, because people do that. And I just don't, I don't even like the idea of like putting that out as a product, and not to sound like weird and like insanely health conscious, because we're talking about beer. But at a certain point, you're just serving fruit smoothie that has alcohol in it, and I don't know. That's where it starts to get a little wonky for me, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
And I know you're not. I know you're not a big IPA guy in general, but especially so for the hazy side of things.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm not. I mean, I understand the IPA has a place. I mean, it's been around for a very long time.
Sure.
But there's just, it seems like the industry's gotten stuck on hops, because there's, the term juicy and all these.
Sure.
There's like what, 10 or 12 categories now of IPA driven beers.
Sure.
And they're all pretty much just the same thing, just called different.
Sure.
Like,
I think it to be, I find it to be, and that is one of the things. I remember I was at CBC last year, maybe, or a year before, whatever. And Gerds and I were at the Crosby booth. They have like they're outside, outside the trade show or whatever. They have a big thing, and they have 10, 12 beers on tap or whatever. And I was tasting through all the hazy stuff. Really, just I wanted to taste what other people had going on, and I'm not trying to sound like negative or anything like that. I enjoyed the beers, but the beers all tasted like London 3, that London 3 strain with Citra and Mosaic. And that was probably what most of those beers are, because it makes a tasty version of that style. But there wasn't a lot of elbow room. You know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of difference. And that's not taking shots at anybody else's beer. I just think so much of those beers are that yeast strain and Citra and something else. And it can become a little monochromatic. Yeah.
I find it quite redundant. All of that. It doesn't anger me. It's like, oh, let's move on from the whole hop thing.
Sure.
Let's put some resources into finding out other things about other parts of the beer, so you can
learn
how to use that. But I think we know enough about hops for the time being.
Sure. Well, dude, there's so much stuff coming down on the yeast side now, which is really wild. Omega Yeast has a newsletter, I believe, called Top Crop, and they have tons of, they're just reporting out on the stuff that they're doing. And now they're doing a lot of stuff with engineered yeast. And so we've talked over the last 18 months about the work that I've been doing, like with thiolized strains, what you can do with those with hop forward beers and whatever. But now they're making strains that will produce ALDC, and ALDC is this enzyme which will stop the production of diacetyl in a beer.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
So yeah, so like you can buy ALDC right now and add it to the fermenter at pitch, I believe, and it will hold back production of. I think it's essentially diacetyl precursor. I think that's how it's functioning. I could be wrong on that, but either way, it's supposed to prevent diacetyl in your beer. And then now they have just the strain itself that will produce that. So it's,
I like that. That's useful stuff for people who don't make IPAs all day and all night.
Sure. You know? and they have it in a range of different styles, in a range of different yeasts. I believe they have like they have some lager strains that will self-produce ALDC.
So what is
as well as hot for as well as
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeast. Like, so they have a Belgian, like it's a yeast that does that, or there's an additive, or is it a they've modified?
It is the yeast. It's the yeast itself. So if you're used to 3470 as your lager strain, it is 3470, but with a gene switched that will produce ALDC. So that thing will not create diacetyl.
Okay. I would like a separate thing. I'd like to be able to use that yeast to get the flavor profile, but then throw that in there like Biofine or something like that. I would find that to be useful. I'd be a little I don't know, hesitant to use a strain that had that in there. I would,
sure,
because it might could change anything and everything, right?
Well, and that's the thing. And right now over in the chat, hey, Human on Earth, he also says, they're genetically modified strains. And he said that freaks him out. I am in no way, shape, or form a scientist, and I don't know. I mean, look at me. Look at that front tooth, Rock. You see it kicking off the side. A guy with teeth like that doesn't have answers.
You got to be a scientist. What are you talking about? What else are you going to do?
I can't tell you one way or another how to feel about these genetically modified yeasts. If you're sketched out by it, I don't have an issue with it. You know what I mean? Sure. Don't drink the beer. Don't use it. I've used them. I also don't drink a ton of beer, so I'm probably not sweating it that much. But I mean, I'm not sure if they're available everywhere right now. I'm not sure if that GMO stuff is even sanctioned to use in Europe. And I could be talking out of the side of my head here, but I do think I'm not sure if you're able to use them everywhere. So I mean that is a concern that some people have, and like I said, I can't judge it one way or another, so I won't. But yeah, I mean it is a strange thing. And they have other strains too that they are. So right now, Omega is classifying standard yeast strains that are more likely to produce a stable haze. And so they're actually clicking, they're modifying a gene in yeast strains that will actually make that more haze positive.
Gotcha.
So it's kind of bizarre, man. I don't know. And I mean, I think some of the stuff can be useful tools, but there's some, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, good. Let me know how it works out. I can't wait to use some haze positive yeast strains for my. I mean, it would be good, like if they could do it for me. I like Belgian beer specifically. A wit would be nice, Mm-hmm. But I would, like I said, I would rather have something that I could add to it, like what is the thing you have to take the gluten out of it? What is that stuff called?
Oh, I'm using Brewer's Clarex, which is a similar product to Clarity Firm.
Right,
but
Clarity Firm is what I was thinking.
Just the FYI on that, Clarity Firm is essentially, sue me, bring it at me, White Labs. It's essentially dilute Brewer's Clarex. So if you're going to be using that in the brew house, don't use the Clarity Firm calculator for Brewer's Clarex, because Brewer's Clarex is a more concentrated form, essentially. But yeah, I mean that's been working out really well. You can see right here that I have been. This is the first time on a live stream in some time that there is beer in a glass in front of me, and this is a beer that I brewed with Clarity Firm, and this is the second time I've drank it, and but as in like having a full pint. And I've had no issues with it, man. It's actually been a really good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it is nice to be able to have that control over some of those things.
Sure.
Whether it be the ALDC stuff, I need to start playing with that because I have cans going out to distro now, and they're going to be sitting warm with my IPA. And cool. I think I probably want to start getting some ALDC in there, just on the off chance that something gets a little hot creepy
sure.
while it's in the can.
Yeah, so, let me know how it works.
For sure. So that makes me wonder, because I know you said your basically second or third best-selling beer is your IPA.
Yeah, with the light lager that's on, it's number 3. Mm-hmm. It's the Kolsch and the light, vice versa, sure. And then the IPA is the third, which is kind of strange because they're kind of the exact opposite beers.
Sure.
Right. I mean, one's 65, 70 IBU, the other one's 7.
Yeah.
One's 7.5%, one's 4.
But I think it kind of speaks to that range of people that come into the pub. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's a lot of people that just want a pint to crush, and there's somebody that's coming in that's looking for something much more bold. Yeah.
It's interesting.
So when it comes to that, we mentioned hop creep. Have you ever had hop creep in the IPA that you're brewing?
I don't think so. Hop creep comes from isn't that dry hopping? Isn't that where it comes from?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't dry hop, so no.
Oh, you're a savage. You don't dry hop.
I'm an old school savage. I don't do it at all. I don't do it at all. So I did it one time. The last time I dry hopped was about I don't know, a year ago. Mm-hmm. And I transfer into the fermenter, which I've clean, purged, blah blah blah, and then I add some pellet to the top, and then I recirc through the racking arm, and about I don't know, halfway through the batch being gone, or maybe a quarter left, it just started to oxidize. It just turned like brown, because mine is. Yeah. I don't add any caramel malt into my sure. IPA. It's it's a relatively blonde beer. So I had to let go of a couple barrels because it got oxidized, the color and the flavor and everything. So and I went back and I had to figure out like what the hell just happened. Like why is this beer turning like cardboard brown? Mm-hmm. And I went through my notes, and it's because I had it's the only time since I had been there that I had dry hopped and recirculated through the arm and stuff. So
and oxygen is such a big part of it, man. Especially, in all beers, once there's alcohol present, you know what I mean. Once you get past growth phase with that yeast, man, it's just poison. Yeah. And I think that's one of the tough things with those hop forward beers, and especially if you're gonna be dry hopping, is keeping oxygen out of them, man. That's the kiss of death with those beers.
Yeah, and inherently, if you're dry hopping, the potential's there.
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, it's not there with anything else. It's you're tempting fate with those beers.
Sure. I have the sweet little pressurizable hop doser. Have you ever?
I saw that. That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
That is slick. And I also think even from a safety standpoint, if any of you out there are in that situation where you're still busting that 4-inch cap off the top of your fermenter, and you're pouring bags of hops in there, and then hoping to get that cap back on in time before that thing comes out at you and says hello. This hop doser is the way to go. The valve that goes on it, this big giant 4-inch valve, which is kind of awesome in and of itself. I just put that on the top of the tank, and then I cap over that just so that surface that would be open otherwise is sealed and sanitary. Sure. But then that doser just straps right on there. You can pressurize the doser. You can purge it. It's really the only way to go. And I think especially from a safety standpoint, man, because you've seen videos of people having beer shooting out of the tank.
Sure, yeah. Yeah. How big you have? It's a 3-inch port, right?
It's a 4 on
4?
mine. It's a 4-inch. Yeah.
Yeah. I have like only it's like a 2-inch PRV or something.
Okay, so you're dry hopping
That's
through the
standard,
PRV.
right?
Yeah, that's
Well,
pretty
yeah,
standard for
I
a
did.
PRV. Yep.
Yeah, I don't. But yeah, so I don't know if they make them, and even if they did, I don't even know if I would want to waste the hop on it. I don't even know if it's worth it to me.
Sure.
You know, I mean,
Well,
I'm not that IPA guy. I don't know.
Well, and that's the funny thing, and I think I don't think I've said it before on here, but I do think it's funny how different people have different palate for things, because for me, I'm very sensitive to phenols. Like phenols for me become like plastic so fast. Like, do you remember when we were kids and you get a toy and then there'd be like a piece of plastic that was in the packaging or whatever?
Oh yeah.
And because I was a spaz, I would bend it and I would want it to break, but it wouldn't. And it would just stretch and bend. But you start bending it and it starts getting hot and you're just a spaz. So you keep doing it. And it actually starts smelling like oil, or like it starts smelling like weird. You know what I mean? And real like hot plastic. Dude, phenols go from like, you know, like lightly, like a little generally spicy, maybe a little bit of clove, just boom, straight to burnt plastic for me.
Okay.
There's no in between. And so you're talking about kind of, you know, how IPA isn't your thing. When I went to Belgium, I sat down in a place with appropriate glassware, because everybody has the appropriate glassware there. So there's 10 different beers you can get. They all know how to pour it out of the bottle. But if you're ordering Westmalle or, you know, Rodenbach, whatever, they all have the right glassware and everything. So they come over, they pour my Westmalle triple. And dude, for me, that beer was so phenolic for me. I felt I felt like the biggest douchebag, because here I am in Brussels with my chalice of Westmalle, and I'm like, I think it's a little plasticky.
Could be better.
You know? Now listen, okay. I know full well that's essentially, at least that's what BJCP used to say. That I think they had Westmalle triple rated as like the triple in the world, or at least like one of the ones, right?
I would agree.
It's the top of the mountain. But for my stupid palate, it was phenolic. You know what I mean? And I just know that's, but then there was other beers that I had there that I thought were fruitier, which were more in a range where I liked it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, everybody has their.
So you went to Belgium, you go to Westmont, you have the beer and you hate it. You're like, ah. God bless you.
In all fairness, I was at a beer bar, and it was it was my only bad experience. So when we went there, we did the whole thing where I had a buddy of mine say, "Hey, we should go." And he actually took me there. He actually paid for me to go. I couldn't go. So at the time, I was not working. I was on sabbatical from teaching, so I'm receiving no paycheck. It's between that and me starting my pro brewing career. Okay. And he comes over the house and he has three different Roquefort beers. And we're splitting them and we're sipping them, whatever. And so, I mean, back then, the talk was always best beer in the world was Westvleteren 12.
Yeah.
Right. So
for sure.
Yeah. And so I was like,
not for you though. It's too fruity.
No, I loved it. Actually, I'll say this though. Well, we'll get to that. But and I said, how good of a story would it be to just fly to Belgium, go to the monastery, drink this beer, and come home? And we're laughing, talking, whatever, we're sipping on these Belgian beers. And a little bit later, he's like, "Hey, listen, we should go." And I said, "Yeah, man, that'd be great." And he goes, "No, seriously, we should go." And I said, "Well, I can't afford it." And he said, "Well, I'll take you." And I said, "You're going to pay for me to go to Belgium for a weekend?" And he goes, "Yeah, man." He goes, I've got some extra money. He said, and the funny thing was, he said, if I don't do something awesome with it like this, I'm just going to buy a bunch of stupid science fiction DVDs
Wow.
So let's
awesome.
he said, so let's do something awesome with it. And I'm like,
Wow.
okay. So
Okay. Yeah.
here I do. I pick up the phone. I call my wife who's working. I'm like, hey babe, how's it going? And she's like, good. How are you? I'm like, oh, I'm just having some drinks with Kevin. She goes, oh, that's nice. And I said, hey, he wants to go to Belgium. And she goes, really? She goes, well, that sounds like fun. And she goes, well, for how long? And I'm like, just for like a long weekend, like a Friday to a Monday, just in and out. You know what I mean? And she goes, well, that sounds great. And she goes, but we don't have the money for that. And I said, yeah, I know, but he wants to pay for me to go. And she goes, well, sounds great. When do you want to go?
Yeah, that's a good answer.
That's a good woman right there,
Yeah.
man. So her unemployed husband laying on the couch,
get you out of there for a while. She got you off out of the country, across the world. It's like, oh, it's about time.
Dude. So I ended up calling my buddy Lou, who he had done some. He's traveled in Europe before, and he was single at the time. And so I mean, I'm like, hey, dude, in like 6 weeks we're going to Belgium. Do you want to go? And he goes, yeah. So it was the three of us, and we went over there. And the first day we hit up Cantillon, which was absolutely just a sensational experience. Second day we took the train out to, well, I guess the town is Poperinge, and then from there you have to either have to bike or taxi out. We biked out to the monastery, to West Vletteren. And that was
had some so-so beer over there, and then
dude, no, I'll tell you that. Well, those beers are really that style of Belgian beer is much more my wheelhouse. Like the darker, richer red brown beers, those strong ales. When it comes to those styles of Belgian beer, that's really what I prefer. I say double. I know you say double, but doubles, quads, dark strongs, whatever you want to call them. That's my preference for Belgian beer, because I love like the dark cherry, the fig, the plummy stuff. The darker fruit stuff. Yeah.
Without question.
Yeah. So when we went there, they had the 6, the 8, and the 12, and so the 6 was like, not quite a table beer. It may have, I'm trying to remember the ABV on it, but it was the most sessionable of the beers. It was pale. It was golden, firmly bitter, not pale, not like Sierra Nevada pale ale bitter, less than that, but Belgian character, probably like a Belgian pale ale type beer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it went up to the 8 and then the 12. Now I will say this, drinking them all right there, the 8 beat the 12, but I think the reason is I think it hit its prime sooner because it's a lower ABV. That 12 is higher, and I think we were all drinking them at about the same age. I think if you actually get a little bit, and I don't think it needs a lot of time. Like I'm not those beers were. I mean, it was. I don't know, as hokey as you want to get about, a beer experience, as far as it goes, I mean, those beers were magic. You know what I mean? For the love of God, you flew over the Atlantic Ocean. You took a train. Who in the United States takes a train? I mean, places. I mean, and it wasn't a subway. Like, it was a real train, like, out into the countryside. Yeah. And then you ride a bike to get to a monastery where the guys won't talk to you. You know what I mean? Like there's so much built around it. There's so much magic built into it.
It's an adventure.
Oh, dude, it was I honestly, and that was the thing, and this is kind of an off the cuff thing, but the guy that I ended up going to Belgium with, Kevin, I haven't seen him as much over the last several years, and sometimes that's just how life is, you know what I mean? But dude, that's something you don't forget. He was absolutely right. He could have spent that money on, Deep Space Nine DVDs, or done that, and it was wild, man. It was just an absolutely magic experience. But no, those beers were gorgeous, man. And there was nothing you could get there. You can get the 6, the 8, and the 12, and you can get cheese and you could get some sort of processed meatloaf. It was like almost like cold cutty, like type, and it had like chunks of meat inside of a larger meat slice.
I don't even know what you're saying. Chunks of meat inside of a larger meat slice.
Yeah, I mean, like, so just imagine it was like I don't know, it was like
a kaleidoscope of meat.
Yeah, but it was all stuck together. It was like some sort of meat compression.
That sounds delicious.
So I know how to sell cold cuts, baby.
Yeah, you're good, man.
But no, dude. So yeah, man. But that really was. I mean, that was one of those things where, I mean, you couldn't beat it, you know. And then we had the great part of it is we didn't realize. So none of us speak any local language. You know, we're just three American dummies out there. Sure. And we don't realize, in our excitement, we don't realize that it's all slightly downhill going to the monastery. And then so we're at the monastery, and so they have a building across the street from the monastery. It looks like a little bit like this is going to sound bad, but like a glorified freeway rest stop.
Okay.
I'm not joking. I feel a little bad saying it, but it's nice.
It's
a nice building. But
sure.
But you go over there and they have the 3 beers and the meat and cheese, and that's what they do. But it was all kind of downhill on the way back, so we went there and imbibed. We had our beers there, and then of course we load up with 50 pounds of beer on our backs, and we have to ride the bikes back now. And now we're noticing that it's all subtly uphill, and subtly uphill does not seem like a big deal until you're doing it with a 50-pound pack and some Belgian beer in your stomach.
Yeah, with a buzz, yeah, for sure. And all that compressed meat stretching your belly out.
But dude, it was a beautiful thing, man. I mean, that was obviously like the biggest. You know, I've traveled around a little bit on the beer scene here in the U.S., but that was my one thing over in Belgium. Have you done any like international travel for beer?
No, I have not.
That surprises me with you.
No, I've had a few beers in Mexico, but they were all like Tecate.
It's the home of the Mexican lager, baby.
Yeah,
I mean, come
Modelo.
on.
So, yeah, I'm well traveled. I'm an international beer traveler. No, I haven't.
That surprises me that you haven't been over to Germany yet.
No, I had a semi kind of agreement with my previous employer. Should I ever win the big deal at the GABF, that they would pay for a trip to Belgium. That never came to fruition. That's as close as I got.
You won a lot of big deals, though. None of the big deals were big enough.
No, apparently not. The biggest one you could get wasn't good enough. No.
I mean, you won Brew Pub and Brewmaster of the Year. That was 2014. 2014.
Yeah.
And that doesn't get the doesn't get the Well, aim higher,
and that and that's fine. Whatever.
Sure. I mean,
I could have done it myself. It's not like you got to rely on everybody else to do it.
Sure.
But we had young kids at the time too, and even now, we've discussed going over there. I'd like to live over there for like 3 months at a time, just like a 3-month clip. Go to like Germany. I want to watch the snowfall. I want to see the Alps. I want to, that type of stuff. And then, obviously come back. And I want to do it in Belgium. I want to spend like months in a place. I don't want to go. I want to have like some culture and,
I really don't. I don't think we've talked about this before, but dude, I think you're absolutely correct. We've always, so my mom's side of the family is, they're a bunch of Sicilians, like all Sicilians or whatever. I'm dying to get, I'm not dying because I could have done it for the last 5 years, but I haven't. I'm going to be curious to see if I ever did like a 23andMe or genealogy thing or whatever, how Italian I actually am, because my mom's side of the family is firmly Italian Sicilian. And so there's always been that thought of, going to Italy, going to Rome or whatever. And sometimes it's like, I don't think I want to go to Rome for a week and then go somewhere else. Like, I think I want to be there for a while. Like, because what I actually want to know is I want to know what it feels like living there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to find a spot. Like, I want to find the spot that I like to have coffee at in the morning. I want to find, you know what I mean? Like, you actually want to, you actually want to be like part of the city, part of the culture, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's where it's at.
A lot of those, you know, France, like they'll get a baguette and some coffee, or, you know, like find a good spot for some, you know, prosciutto, or, you know, wherever, with all the great places of Europe. So
man, that's where it's at. So and I'm not making as much German lager as I used to, but I would like to. You got to make the rounds, and Germany is unique too, because I mean they're kind of, and I'm sure it's a little bit different now with distribution and things like that. I'm sure you can get a wider range of things, but they're still pretty niche, like depending on region there. Am I wrong, do you think?
I think you're right. I don't think you're wrong. I don't. Obviously, I don't know exactly. Like, I don't know how much the you know, the American scene has gotten over there, and you know, they're making, you know, they've adjusted the Rheinheitsgebot, but no, I think it used to, you know, in Cologne, I think they're still doing that stuff. You know, that beer over there they're doing, and
still,
you know, I mean, thank goodness that I'm hoping that never changes.
Sure.
And when I could bring my kids over there and be like, this has been going on for ages, you know, I hope that it doesn't change.
So now you've made Kolsch for a while. Am I wrong, or were you making it before, or was it just at Redwood?
I had made it a few times before, but not. I mean, it's a menu beer now, so before, when I was doing it, it was I wouldn't get like a special yeast. I would just at that time I was using like 001 from White Labs, or I don't know what it is, American Ale strain or whatnot.
Chico,
so it's just pretty much anything that has, you know, zero flavor, blah blah blah. That's kind of what I thought it was. When I got the Redwood, I decided, you know, all German grain. I got Vibrant grain. You know, I've used German hops throughout my career. I don't, you know, I'm not an IPA brewer, so I don't go into those crazy things. I go, you know, that stuff, and I don't get American hops, and you know, I don't do that. It's all it's all German hop. So, and it would get the Kolsch strain. 2565 is what I use from. I think it's 2565 from a Y yeast. And that strain has it has flavor. Like, it's a distinct flavor with that strain. So I have made it now for a little close to 3 years now at Redwood. Specifically as what I think a Kolsch should be, the way I brew Belgians, the way I'll brew, you know, any German beer, or any style of beer.
So sometimes people will say with that Kolsch strain that you might be able to pull like a light ester off of that. Like, I've heard sometimes maybe like a light cherry note or something like that. Does that sound right to you? What's the difference between brewing that beer with Chico as opposed to Kolsch strain?
The 001, the Chico strain, is that what it is? No flavor, no attributes via yeast. So the 2565 does give a little bit of like white, the white fleshy fruit thing, like maybe a little pear, maybe a touch of apple. I didn't get any cherry out of it. I ferment at like 67. Right. So, and then my glycol kicks on at 68, and then it'll drop it to 66. So it, you know, within that 2 degree range. And I mean, it has flavor.
So you pull, and I like that descriptor a lot. I like using that descriptor of white fruit. You know what I mean? Whether it be pear or apple, I think that's a really solid one. You know, something that's kind of also, I don't know, what's another beer? Belgian Golden Strong is another beer that can have some of that white fruit character to it as well.
Yeah. I mean, when you get into the Belgians, I guess they're yeast derived. I get more of a different flavor off of the Belgian strains than I do the Kolsch strain. I mean, obviously the different beers.
No, I mean, you obviously wouldn't have the phenols or anything like that that you would have with the Belgian strain. Yeah, for sure. So that's cool. And you're going a little bit on the higher side with that, because I've run that Kolsch strain. I've run it both at the temperature you're talking about, and I've run it colder too, because it kind of falls into that hybrid range, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it's that and the alt strain that they sell that will fall under that ale/lager hybrid range, where you can be pitching them essentially a warm lager ferment, like in the high 50s, or you can even handle some ale temperature with them as well.
Well, those strains are the alt and the Kolsch are the same strain. I mean, to me, the 2565 is for both of those beers, in my opinion.
Sure.
And I'd have to look at my thing. I think Jeremy, a brewer that I know in Michigan, who has won from Royal Oak Brewery.
Yep.
He won gold in the Kolsch category, and he's won either World Beer Cup or a GBF for the alt. And, we have communicated extensively about that beer and gone through recipes and fermentation temps and stuff. And I have to look to see exactly what it is. But, and I get yeast from him whenever I'm brewing that beer and I don't have it, and he, has it available, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the same strain. So you can brew those two beers are synonymous. I mean, they're, oddly enough, they are super similar beers.
Sure. Fermentation profile.
Fermentation profiles, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
The alt is just fermented a touch higher, like maybe 68, 70. I might do my Kolsch at maybe 64. I'd have to look, but it's not 70, whatever.
Sure. Yeah.
I believe that it's like 60. I believe I put it at 67.
Okay. For sure.
And I think I put the alt at 68, 69.
So you're making an alt as well. That's pretty cool.
Well, not on. I do. It's one of the things that I'll do, on an annual basis. It's not a menu beer, so I'm not doing it all the time. The Kolsch is, but the alt is something that I have done at Redwood on an annual basis.
Sure. Now, how many barrels a year do you guys do over there?
Just a couple hundred, really. We're not blowing the doors up.
Sure.
I wish we were. I'd like to.
Well, but more. I mean, but you're a pub as well, too, right? Like it's not like it's not like you're doing distro as well. You know what I mean? Because that obviously changes things.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I'm glad about. I'm the pub brewer. I can do that day and night. I mean, and that deal. That's a sweet gig.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a sweet gig.
You can see it if you're watching the video. You may have seen my head like drift off to the side, smiling, thinking about it. But but I mean that is the dream, right? Like Gerds would always say, like, the dream is like, and he would always call like a retirement type brewery where it's a few hundred barrels a year. You come in, you do your work, but you're able to take your time. You're able to do the little things. You're never having to rush a beer. You don't have to have a beer out of a bright tank at a certain time. You know what I mean? Because you have to fill 500 cases off of it or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, my previous job was that way. There was a lot of, we made more, and making Belgians at that time was tough because Belgians got to sit.
Sure.
They have to lager pretty much just like a German lager. I mean, that there is a definite flavor profile curve with a high alcohol Belgian given time.
So when you're talking about that lagering or that aging process on those Belgian beers, is that pre-carbonation? Because I do know you do some natural carbonation for a bottle carbonation.
I do.
Does that come? Well, where does that lagering come in with those beers? Is that pre-carbonation?
Either one.
Post? Okay.
Either one. I mean, either one. I noticed at the last place I was at, I just learned that if I just lager them longer, they just tasted better. And at Redwood, because of having to put things on tap, I'd put them on and they would just be a little bit like, they would almost taste bitter. like the triple
Okay.
that
Yeah.
one. It'll almost be like bitter. I'm like, oh damn, like that isn't going to work.
Sure.
And then over the course of time, when it's carbonated and everything, and I'd pull them out of the cooler and taste them for competition, and be like, okay, that's better. And then I know that 3 months down the line, it's going in the right direction, and it doesn't taste like it did.
Sure.
And even the stuff on tap that I had put in a keg, because I'd keg it off, or I'd have it in a tank, or whatever the case may be, time would round it out a touch.
Oh, absolutely.
And just make it softer around, especially like a triple. It's not supposed to be bitter. I mean, it's got a bitterness to uphold the sweetness, but it can't be like harsh in any way. It's got to be soft and rounded. And, over the course of time, I did it. So it didn't matter if it was still or not.
Okay. So do you feel as if, so two things, what kind of temperature are you talking about that happening at? Is it at room temp? Is it at cooler temperatures? Is it below that? And then the other thing is, what is that sweet spot where you feel like those beers really start pulling together as far as time wise?
It would be at cold temps, lager them at cold temps. I don't like lager in a warm temp type of thing. I mean, once they go cold, I'll bottle condition some of them sometimes for either competition or whatnot.
Sure.
And those get carbonated and then in the cooler, and then they just sit.
Yes.
So So cold temp is the way to go.
Yep.
I don't trust warm temp.
Yep.
And then what was the other question?
How long? Like, what's that window? Like, when do you expect it to be 1 month, 2 months, 6 months? Do you feel like they kind of dependably start coming together at within a certain window?
I'd say for your higher gravity beers, I'd say 6 months.
Sure.
Like the sweet spot is like okay, this is pretty good. This is what I want.
And when you say higher gravity, what is that? What's that ABV range in your head?
Anywhere between 8 and 11, 8 and up, right? Like I do a double that's 7. It's like 7.5. That's what I do. It's 7.4 to 7.6, depending on whatever. And that one too will benefit from age.
Sure.
But I know that a triple and a quad, which I have done, they definitely benefit from those longer periods. And obviously the longer they go, you can go a year and a half, and they're still just wonderful. They're beautiful.
I had a dark strong that it was the last beer that I brewed at home, because what I was doing was, and this is when we met, when I was doing this. So we met at the Michigan Homebrewers Festival, and that coincided with what was at the time the Michigan Beer Cup. And I don't know if that competition is still going on. It was a really big comp. They'd get 800-900 entries in it. And I had a booth there I was representing the Brewing Network as my homebrew club, because that was all the stuff that I listened to and whatnot. And I think I probably had 35 beers in that competition. And then I essentially was able to have a booth by myself there, because I think I poured 5 or 6 corny kegs, 5 to 7 corny kegs, and probably 250 bottles of beer at that festival.
Wow. Really?
Because I emptied the cellar, because that's
nice.
I only brewed for competition. Really, once I got going, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to destroy everybody and try to win everything, right? Once I was firmly in that crazy place, that's the only brewing I did. And so I rarely brewed to have beers for friends or for myself. And so I forgot exactly why I was telling you this. But yeah.
You wanted to take over the world with your.
Well, no, but there was that. But that was we met. We met at that, and we were we have pictures of us in our youth, just emanating the freshness, the vitality of youth.
Just tell,
the two of us back in the day.
A few more pounds, a little less gray. I know for me anyway.
Yeah, me too.
It was a blistering day that day. It was like 90-some degrees.
Yeah,
it was. Hell.
It was really hot, man. It was really hot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I forgot exactly why I was going there with that. But,
I do remember that day though, trying to convince you to go into professional brewing.
Yeah, man, that I can't tell you how much that meant to me. And there's literally somebody that took a picture of us while we were having a conversation, and it was you drinking my Munich Helles, and you're holding the glass and pointing to it and talking to me. And that's literally when you were telling me
you got to do your homework.
Yes.
Like you got to do more than this. This is horrible.
Yeah, it was right before you slapped me about the face with your gloves.
It was before
you degloved and then smacked me about the upper body with your gloves. But no, man, and that was so big for me, because obviously, and I mean, and I don't know about you, but I remember, when I was at that stage, talking to a pro, having them drink your beer and like it. That was it couldn't have been better. I remember I was helping out Gerds down he was helping me out when I was coming down to Ann Arbor in order to get some pro side experience, right? And we had never met or anything before, and I'm going down there, and he was always nice to me. But it wasn't until I think the second time I came down there, I brought some beers, and I brought a really nice pale ale. And it was actually, for those, somebody just mentioned homebrewers in the chat. It was I think it was the Tasty Pale Ale, Mike McDole's pale ale recipe from back in the day. And that was it. Mike was doing really cool things back then because he was really plugged into the California brewer scene, and he was doing stuff at home that was legitimately affecting, because he was so tight with other pros. He was doing really cool stuff. And so he started doing a lot of the the early session IPA stuff. He was very much tied in on. And so I had this version of his pale ale, which was very hop forward, not so much bitterness, but big flavor and aroma. And it was really right. It was a nice little beer, man. You could crush it. It was well balanced. A lot of times those hoppier beers, when they're smaller ABV, they get real thin and bitter. Like hop water or something, but this was well balanced. And I brought that beer in and I poured it for Bill, and I'm like, hey man, so this is my pale ale. And he started drinking it, and they started drinking a little bit. He started asking me a few questions, and he goes, damn man, this is good. And then that really changed the tenor of our relationship. You know what I mean? Not that he treated me better because I made a beer that he liked, but it was just I think if anything, it was probably more of a confidence booster for me just to be more myself around him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But, and he's a formidable guy. If you first meet him, he's like a tank.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's got shoulder you can't see here. If I do it, he's got these monster shoulders. He's dressed like this guy from a long time ago that will skateboard up and maybe beat you up and steal the wallet off your chain.
Steal your girlfriend from you, yeah.
And that too. Yeah, man. He cut the figure, but he's the soft one. I feel like I have a collection of brewer friends that are potentially a little bit imposing, but also a little bit soft on the inside. But anyway,
he's one of them.
He is.
Yeah,
he is. But yeah, man. So I wanted to ask you something about that beer right there, that Mexican lager that you're drinking. You did something interesting with that. You used a product that I have not used that is designed to help with foam stability. Can you speak on that at all?
Biofoam K, I believe it is.
Okay.
Got it through a brewer supply group.
Yep.
And from what I understand, it is like an algae based, that kind of thing, because you can use, all sorts of different stuff. But,
sure.
That's what I used. And I dosed it, I think, a little too high. I think I put 90 grams per 10 or 12 barrels or something like that. And I think that's a little bit on the higher side. And I was a little bit worried about it. But I wanted to, because I was discussing this with you, I want to be able to drop a lime in there and still have the head on the beer.
Sure.
And I mean, we got 2 limes in there, and it's been sitting for a bit, but but there's still a little bit of, it's still there. I mean, there's, you know,
absolutely. And you had, I was actually thinking about digging up some of the pictures because I know I can actually throw them up on the live video, but I didn't have time to. But it's impressive. It is something that I actually have to mess around with a little bit, because the foam that you had on that beer from those early pictures. First of all, I love that you had it in a stange. Is that your wife's glass? That, because I know you're out of the boot, dude. They're, and I'm not like a huge glassware nerd, but I think there's certain beers that are they just look so darn good out of certain glasses. You know, and the stange is typically a Kolsch glass, correct?
Yeah. It's the only one that is. I mean,
sure. And is that essentially like, is it like just like a borderline kind of Tom Collins glass, or am I being crazy?
No,
just a straight wall, narrow.
It's essentially the same thing.
Yeah, but it shows off. It shows off the clarity. It shows off how pale it is. Yeah. And then you had this fat, like kind of like gauzy head on top of that thing. And the one time, like the line was even like floating on it, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I took a couple pictures and sent them to you. I'd squeeze the juicer and throw it in there, and I'd even wait, and it would be, it would look like that, and there'd be a lime underneath it, just bobbing in there. You know, like you can put it in there. Like there's a lime at the bottom,
but it's not killing the foam.
It's not doing. It's laughing.
Yes.
I don't know if you can hear it or not, but it's actually laughing.
No, the audio is super good. I can hear it.
Yeah.
But you know that is an interesting thing, because we spent a lot of time, before you brewed this beer, just kind of kicking around, you know, like what are the goals that we want to make when we're making a light lager like this? You know, what are we shooting for? And you mentioned kind of that concern of, well, geez, with using rice or using corn, using an adjunct, you're going to be limiting some of those foam positive proteins from getting into your beer by not having an all malt beer, and it's not going to hold a foam stand in the same way. Now, and what I told you was, I'm like, but you know, it's also not expected. Yeah. Right. But it's not bad to have it on it either. Now, would you use that product again?
I have. I've used it in a couple different things just to see. Sure. Just to see. I mean, I would, and I do. Not all the time, but on the Belgians, I don't, because I don't think it needs it for whatever reason. I don't know if it's a yeast thing.
Sure.
Plus, and they're also not. I don't filter the Belgian, so for some reason, I just think that the head retention is better.
So you're waiting. You're lagering out those beers for clarity. That's what you're doing.
Well,
or do you just feel as if
they the process? Drop? But both. Okay. Both. But I also I have a plate and frame filter, so I do filter those beers. I know you don't have a filter.
I do not know.
So I don't have that issue with lagering for clarity.
Sure.
I use 2206 for standard lagers.
Yep.
That's would be my house lager strain, and I think that drops pretty good. If it's a really dark lager, if I'm doing like a Munich Dunk or something, I won't filter that, because filtered, I believe, does take some flavor off of it. But like for a Helles, or for, you know, a Brauk beer, or for something like that, where, you know, crystal clarity is part of the game.
Yeah.
I definitely filter.
Now, are you I'll tell you this, and I've had beers that get really nice and clear, but when you send me pictures of filtered beer, pale filtered beer, it makes me want to filter, man. Yeah. It looks so damn good.
I agree.
It looks so damn good.
It does. It looks nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something that a filter does that those clarity, not clarity firm, but
Biofine.
Thank you. Biofine. And I used to use Biofine silica gel, things like that.
Yep.
And they take it to a point. I mean, they can take you all the way there, depending on, you know, what you want.
Sure.
Because I used them for years and years. Silica gel I liked a lot. Biofine, was easier.
Yep.
Because you didn't have to mix anything.
Yep.
And that worked well too. But to me, those are like Band-Aid type of things. When I did my last Oktoberfest, my filtration was not all that fantastic on my Oktoberfest. So I added Biofine into the Bright as I was filtering.
Yep.
And then wait a day or two, and then that turned out just crystal clear.
Sure.
So I use them that way, but I mean, they do work.
Yeah.
And they don't take flavor out of the beer either. So they're, it's a give and take situation.
Sure. And I think that might be a little bit style dependent. I feel like you mentioned like maybe you feel as if like it shaves a little bit off of like a Dunkel or something like that. But I think that it can, I think it can potentially pull flavor from IPA, but I think at the same time though, like, I don't know, especially if we're talking about lagers, about yellow beers and little amber beers and those traditional German beers, I don't think you're in too much of a danger of pulling too much character out of them. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. And it also depends on, I have a plate and frame, so I use a cellulose sheet. So, they can either be, 3 to 5 micron or 10 to 15, you know what I mean? So they can,
sure.
The tighter you filter, the more you're going to take things out too. So
sure.
There's also that fine line where if you must filter.
What micron sheet do you like to use?
For the really, like that one, it was like a 1 to 3, I think, or 2 to 4, something like really low.
Sure.
But like for a Helles, I'd use like a 3 to 5.
Yep.
I forget what they are because there's like HS and there's the seats K.
Sure.
I think that was like a K80 or K90 or something like that. And I think for like a Helles or whatever, I'd use a 100, the 100 series.
Yep. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, and they overlap. It's not like they build on top of each other where, there's a lot of overlap. So it's kind of, hit or miss. Really.
Now I used a plate and frame early in my career, and I didn't know much about it. And Gerds and I used it when he worked with me, and we would push with CO2 head pressure. Do you push with CO2 when you do that? Now my question is with this is, my biggest concern with doing things on the cold side is always sanitation and always oxygen ingress, right?
Yep.
So how do you handle that filter in order to, one, get it sanitized? Do you go chemical? Do you go heat? And then kind of what are your steps as far as trying to minimize things like O2 ingress? What's that process with you filtering?
Well, they're plastic frames, plates, whatever you want to call them. So the day that I'm going to filter, I will, obviously while I'm cleaning a tank, I'll heavily caustic with a brush. I mean, it's kind of rudimentary, really. You just scrub, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
With caustic. And then when I'm on a sanitation cycle, I use peracetic acid. So I'll, do a caustic and an acid. And then on the sanitizer side, I'll, everything is clean, and put my filter sheets in there, crank it down, and then sanitize the sheets, if you will. Sure. And then a purge tank, pull beer through, put it in the tank, and then carbonate as soon as possible.
Sure.
Just for any, in case there's anything going on. But I mean, it's really, that's the only thing you can do with them. I don't know anything else you can do with them.
Sure. I think some people will try to use like HLT water to kind of like burn it out or something like that. Yeah. I wasn't sure. So but then again, like, I feel like when I was doing it, I was really bad. And I felt like I had like these all day long filters, and it was terrible. But then again, I was also trying to filter what at the time was an aggressively dry hopped IPA. I was trying to filter a 2 pound per barrel dry hopped beer, and it was a mess, trying to do that. So when you're going through that, like, what do you find? So how much head pressure would you have on the fermentation vessel that is sending unfiltered beer to the filter?
I start at usually about, let's say 7 to 10.
Okay.
just to push it through, and then out as high as the tank will take.
Mm-hmm.
So when it starts going, because it does collect yeast even when they've
Sure.
been lagering for a while. It's just a matter of fact that that's what's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, as high as that, tanks are rated for 15, so I'll get it to 15. And sometimes the PRV is just hissing.
Sure.
And sometimes it takes if you got a 15 barrel batch, the last few barrels that go in there take an hour. When the first 3/4 took 20 minutes.
Sure.
When it's gotten stuck and I know that I just don't have anything, I have in the past shut everything off, open it, drop new sheets in, and let it rip again.
Sure.
They're not sanitized, or because you can't at that time. You have to do what you have to do.
Yeah.
And that's work too. I haven't had an issue with that. I mean,
sure.
It's not what I want to do, but if it's taking me 6 hours per barrel, I got to go.
You got to make a move. Yeah.
I mean, you got to, you can be there all day and get like a pint of beer per 45 minutes. That's not acceptable.
Sure. So so say for something like that light lager, not that you need the exact time, but you filtered 15 barrels of it, correct?
Yeah.
And kind of ballpark on what that probably took to get through your filter?
That one was pretty easy because I dropped the yeast out a lot, and it had a decent amount of lagering time. And when I put the arm down, it didn't, grab anything that I saw go through the sight glass. And, that probably took 45 minutes.
Nice.
Something like that. I mean, it was actually very fast. It made me wonder about lighter alcohol. You know what I mean? Like those kind of beers.
Sure.
It was different. I hadn't brewed something like that, but 25% corn ever. And it was just the yeast counts were fantastic at the end of it. The filtration was easy. It was just a really easy beer to make.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. Good. It was good experience.
I just listened to. I didn't listen to. I read there was one of the breweries that was Creature Comforts that just won an award, maybe a gold for American Pilsner, and that would have been World Beer Cup, maybe.
Yeah.
And they're doing light lager, but with 100% all malt. And, and it sounds like what they're doing is just starting with a lower starting gravity, so taking it even lower, and so that's how they're making that beer light and small, is by just knocking the OG down. Now, I remember when we first started making Cartucho, our Mexican lager, putting a beer that was 1039. In the fermenter, man, that's one that have you sweating. I remember when we were talking about making that beer, I was like, hey man, listen, those final runnings, they're gonna make you sweat visually when you see that stuff going into the kettle. Were those final runnings pretty darn pale?
They look like water. I would have to at certain points I would be taking pH readings of that, and also the the sparge water and everything.
Sure.
They were alarming. It was just like, I mean, I probably took 20 readings in the last 4 barrels, and I just kept throwing the hydrometer in there, and I'd be like, I gotta take more work. This is crazy. What's going on here? But everything, it worked out. It was just it's a different experience because I'm used to making, my history is a more larger Belgian beer. So when I'm making these, 1039, like what the hell? I think mine was like 1038. I think was my starting gravity, which is it's ridiculous. I mean, they're just so tiny.
Yeah, everything is so minimal in there. Jamie Tripp, who's actually opening his own spot soon, he is in the chat, and he's asking he said, Rockne, I want your Mexican lager recipe for my new brewery. Also, if you or Adam have a favorite Oktoberfest style, he's opening up his brewery here soon. And so kind of what's that?
Could you give me 1 minute? I'll go get that. And also I have to make room for more beer if that's okay.
Absolutely, brother. Go for it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. We'll be right back. Hey, as we wait for Rock to join us again, thank you. Thanks so much to everybody in the chat. Good to see everybody in there. We've got Sabrina in here, Human on Earth, Spoiled Brats. There was one thing that I wanted to point out for sure. The Spoiled Brats, Adam, thanks for not forgetting about us homebrewers and making beer so approachable for all levels of brewing. I love compliments like that, man. I like trying to create a situation where both pros and folks doing it on the homebrew side can pull some value out of it. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Rock, welcome back.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
No, you're good, man. Let's dive into that. Let's dive into that Mexican lager recipe a little bit, and then we can also. I can also talk Oktoberfest briefly. Oh, look at you!
If he wants to screenshot it right now or whatever, but I'll read it to you. I'll read it to you. Yeah. So, Jamie, the recipe, the grist is at 72% Pilsner, 20% corn, flaked corn, 7% carafoam. So 70, with a little bit of 73%, 20%, 7%.
Yeah. So what's your thoughts with that carafoam?
I couldn't taste it, which is good.
Sure.
I know I've listened to.
And that's a reasonable volume. It's not like you're at 50% or something like that. That's totally within range.
And all those are the grains. All the vitamin, obviously the corn is not, but Breeze's. What is there? They're carapils.
Yep.
I can taste that a mile away. I don't have any idea why. And I don't use American grain anyway. So,
sure.
So that's why I put it there. But the carafoam I like. And again, it was the same concept before that we had talked about during the creation of this recipe was for head retention. Because there's no wheat, so carafoam.
Sure.
And then, the biofoam. I had 90 grams of biofoam.
What were you mashing that beer at?
That one was at one. I'm sorry.
I accept your apology.
Okay, good. 148.
148. So nice on that. So nice on the low side. So you should be generating more short chain, easily fermentable sugars in that lower mash temp range. So you should be able to dry it out a little bit. I like that. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And then you said, I think you mentioned before about 7 IBU in that beer. Is that all at 60?
It came out to 8. Sorry. Way off. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Sorry. Don't listen to anything I say.
We thought we were getting the real deal from you here, Rock. Yeah. And that's
it's 8 IBU. And all from Magnum, German Magnum.
Yeah.
Which is that's a good clean bettering hop.
Yeah, that's just the straight real thing right there, man.
Yeah.
And then what did you said? I'm assuming you used your house lager strain on that.
Yes, I did. Let me see. Yeah, 2206.
2206.
2206.
And did you go cold, real cold with that? Did you start warmer? What was your fermentation profile looking like?
I pitch at fermentation temp, or at least I try to. I don't let it go and then drop it down.
Sure.
For anything. So it went into the fermenter at thank you, Sabrina. It went into the fermenter at 58. Within the next day, I set it to 49. So it fermented at 49.
Okay.
And then fermented there for 8 days, 10 days, and then I set it to 63, which for me would be 62 on my stuff.
Nice.
So in 10 days it was at 10-12, and then it went 5-6 days later it was at 1005.
Yeah, baby, nice and dry.
Yeah,
I love it. I love it.
It was nice. I mean, I have to make it again, except I'll use rice this time. I'll do the
Yeah, that's kind of what
version.
that's kind of what we were talking about, right? Because I don't know, like in my mind, like my hunch is that the beer may drink drier with the rice. I could be wrong. I feel like there is a perception of sweetness that can come from corn.
Yeah.
And listen, we're not talking about right or wrong here. We're just talking about what I think maybe the ingredients do, right? Yeah. I feel like when I've done lagers with corn in it, I feel as if there is a sweetness that is not necessarily dependent on residual sugar. I think it's a sweet flavor that plays in there because sometimes you can have a dry beer that drinks sweet. You know what I mean? It's not always completely related to. There can be some sweet flavors that help to prop that stuff up.
Yeah.
I did. We had been talking about foam stand and different things like that. I did want to make one note, and I don't think you'll be able to see this beer that I was drinking before. Did I make it? Okay,
you're good.
So you can see that I still have now. I've been done drinking this for a while, but I still have foam that dried and stuck to the top of this glass. That's the first beer that I spuned it.
Ooh.
And
spooned it. Spooned it. You spooned it. You're not spunning anything.
Which actually brings me to another question, but I do want to go back to the spooning. Yeah. When I say double, do you feel I sound like a hillbilly?
Like a Belgian?
Yes.
No, I say it in both. I'm tired of saying double now because I sound like a douche. So I'm like, it's a double. You know. So
wait. Well, this was the thing, and it was something that I think came up on another live stream or something like that. But like, listen. So if you're gonna pronounce all the words with the appropriate accent, we shouldn't say wort. We should say vert. Right. And I don't know. I don't think I could bring myself to say vert.
But do you say wort?
I think I say it more like wert.
Yeah.
When I pronounce it, I say wort.
I believe that's acceptable.
As opposed to wart.
Yeah, wart. Like that's.
I've got this wart.
Yeah, I got a wart. No, that's a wart. I don't know. It hits me weird.
That's not it. But when you start saying it was an old Brewing Network thing. I remember the host of the Brewing Network podcast was saying at one point, he says, you can't just go ahead and say vert if you're American. Like it just doesn't work out. Leave that to the actual Germans to say, oh, I'm making the vert.
Sweet vert.
So, only the sweetest.
Yeah, well, you can, sure. I do say spooning because I know that it's one of your favorite things.
It is. But back to a spooning, what have you. I will say that and now this is anecdotal, but I have not had foam like that I've gotten off of this beer than I have in any other beer that I've made.
From the spooning, spooning beer,
100%. And now for me, I ended up sealing that tank up at like 1.5 Play-Doh left. The beer actually didn't finish as far as dry as I thought it would. So I didn't have it sealed for as long as I thought. But dude, I'll tell you, I think it made a real difference. One, I've used Tetra hop oil, which is a beneficial tool in the brewery. If you have a beer that you need to nudge the bitterness up on, you can do that going into the bright with Tetra hop oil. And it's foam positive. But I'll say this, the bubbles are bigger and they look soapier. Okay, but I'm talking about like the size of the bubbles, right?
I know exactly what you mean.
What I had with this beer, when I pour this beer on draft, the surface of the beer, it doesn't look like nitro, but you know, like this is flat, you know what I mean? Flat thing. But the quality of the foam is far different and the head retention is far different. So it just is what it is. Jamie, Rock brews at Redwood Steakhouse and Brewery, and that is in Flint, correct?
That is, yes, Flint, Michigan. Yeah.
That's in Flint. And Jamie, being a good American, a guy that actually even used to teach social studies, I have no concept of how far away Ontario is from Flint. So I'm going to say it's probably about 3 hours. So it's probably just a day trip.
Yeah, it's not far at all.
Is it not far,
Ontario,
actually?
I don't think it's all that far. I mean, once you cross in through, you probably have to go through. I don't know, Jamie. Is it easier to go through Sarnia in Michigan or Detroit? Because if it's through Sarnia, which is the north, like this area, it's probably like 2 hours through there, maybe an hour and a half.
Oh, he said it's not too far.
Yeah, it's not that far.
But yeah, man. So yeah, the quality of foam thing on that spunding was an eye opener.
Yeah.
It was an eye opener, and it makes me, I don't know. I've got to try and so you were saying it's Biofoam K. Was that what it was?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it's not cheap.
Sure.
But I mean, if you're throwing, I don't think it'll be a problem for you if you're putting 15 boxes of fruit into a beer, which is like $1 million. I think you're fine.
Those days for because I mean, right now I'm only brewing distro beers right now. I'm brewing an IPA, I'm brewing a fruit beer, and then I have some specialty seasonal stuff coming up. But the only thing in the only thing in my tanks right now are those beers. I'm not doing any one-off beers right now. I will be once I get over the hump. We're kind of in the middle of this big push of hitting all of our pars for our distributors and things like that. So that stuff will be coming. But as of right now, we're battening down the hatches and turning some of the same beers over and over again. So
for sure, pay the bills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, what else did we want to get into here today? Rock. We talked light lager. Was there anything else light lager wise? You're thinking that you might run it again with rice. I'm very interested to see how that works out for you.
Yeah, I think next summer I'll do the same exact thing. Just replace corn with rice, because I did want that corn flavor, and I think that there is a flavor that comes through with the corn. I don't know if I'll call it Mexican lager, though. I might call it like an Asian lager or something. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. Would you keep the same bitterness profile and everything?
I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
I would only just do the rice just to see.
Mm-hmm.
Just obviously for the differences. I mean, I drink the hell out of this at home. So
yeah. Do you do an iodine test after your mash?
No.
So to test conversion, I've only done it a handful of times. Are you familiar?
Your mash conversion's like you go down the steps, walk up the steps, and you start throwing shit over. I mean, you do like a 30.
I will say this: I've gone to a half-hour rest now. I do a half-hour rest, and then I have a 25-minute recirc.
Okay. Okay. What was your rest before? 15?
Oh, dude. I mean,
or no, you wouldn't even rest, would you? You'd mash it in and then recirc and then go.
I'd mash in, and maybe 5 minutes later, I would do whatever I needed to do, and then start.
Rockstar.
Is that?
Damn. No, that's ballsy. Mine's an hour. Like it's an hour every time, whether it's 12% beer or this one. It's 1 hour.
Now I will.
My recirc is 40 minutes, so you're talking an hour, 40 minutes plus time, so it's almost 2 hours.
Sure, and so now I will say this. So I'm going to be doing a Belgian-inspired beer coming up that I want to be that I'm targeting to be on the drier side, right?
Sure.
So I will probably go, and I'm probably going to go closer. I'm actually brewing this on Monday. I'm targeting like 147 as my mash rest, and okay. I will probably rest that for an hour, because I know those reactions tend to happen slower at lower temperatures,
right?
And so yeah, I will probably give that one some time.
Yeah. I think you're safe with that.
But that's the Yeah, I mean the other stuff that I'm doing, dude, it's so turn and burn. I mean, because really by the time like I'll take a gravity reading off of like the first stuff on my recirc. Like as soon as I start pulling through my recirc arm, I pull that and I've got the super majority of my sugar done.
Okay.
I mean, like if I'm expecting 17 to 20 Play-Doh or whatever, that's what I'm expecting. Dude, I'm gonna have 15 of it as soon as I start recircing.
Right.
It's wild. You know what I mean? Now this has to do with the grain I'm using. Especially these days when I'm not brewing German stuff. I'm using Malt Europe pills, which is basically just like it's super high, as all those American domestic malts are very, very high in enzyme. Why are you smiling at me? Why? I was finger wagging.
At me. Yeah,
I was finger wagging because to me that's the interesting thing that I learned not too long ago. It's just all that passion, baby.
Yeah, it is.
But but the thing is that because these domestic malts, well, obviously grown here domestically, they're built for adjunct, right? Okay. So they're actually built to be brewing light lager. And so because rice and because corn is not bringing any enzyme to the table, they're growing these domestic malts to a higher enzyme level. Gotcha. to make up for the fact, and that blew my mind. I didn't learn that all that long ago, maybe within the last couple of years.
Yeah,
but that's really interesting to me, right?
Yeah.
And so our domestic malts are usually, if we go to our spec sheets, and especially comparing it to maybe like a Barca pills, which I love to use, my guess is that diastatic power number, that DP number, is going to be much higher on that domestic pills that I'm using than that continental pills that you'd be using with something like a Barca. So,
do you think that Malt Europe is supplying like Budweiser and Coors and those? Like, why would they be manufacturing grain that has?
They just started supplying people our size. Small. Is
that right?
Yeah. They supply all big stuff. They supply macro.
Oh, I did not know that. When I first got to Redwood, my silo was filled, and I got a refill with Malt Europe.
Yep.
I mean, since I've gone to Vireman, which is
it's
with a V, Vireman.
Yeah, I say Vireman, or now maybe I'll say Wireman.
I say Wire. I feel silly when I say Vireman, but
I think I catch myself saying both things. That makes more sense to me. Again, Vert isn't going to happen.
Right. We'll have to agree to disagree.
But I think that especially in those beers that I'm doing now with that really high diastatic power, man, you snap your fingers and that stuff's you get it anywhere near saccharification range and it's just done.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah. Good to know.
So anyways, but like I said, I'm really going to be trying to squeeze everything I can out of this. It's a Golden Strong type beer.
Golden Strong.
That I'll be doing. So yeah, I'm going to be mashing real low. And
what's the give me a quick synopsis of it. Golden Strong.
Well, so what I mean, you're going to love, because this beer is going to be adjuncted out the gills. So this is a beer that's going to be. Oh yeah, this is going to be a beer that is. This is a specialty seasonal release that's limited, whatever. So I'm going to be fruiting it as a fall beer. There's going to be a little bit of cinnamon in there as well.
Okay.
So yeah.
All right.
So yeah, and so really the idea is we're playing off some of that white fruit character that you can pull. I think I'm running 3728. What the hell it is? I forget. What the
3727
maybe yeah
3726 I don't know,
something like that. It's the recommended one for Golden Strong.
Sure.
And so I'm gonna be running that. Really just that's just all pills with dextrose in the whirlpool. So I'm going to be leveraging dextrose to push up ABV with, to keep body low. And then I'm looking to riff off some of the white fruit notes from the yeast strain and magnifying that with. We'll be using some real pear puree in there.
Okay.
And we got some actually really beautiful. I forget what kind of cinnamon it was, but it wasn't powdered. It was like in small little pieces. Okay. And it wasn't like the really papery Italian cinnamon. But dude, I opened it up today I have 2 different packages. I opened it up. I'm like, dude, this stuff was like, it was beautiful. So the idea is obviously it is a departure from tradition, but the idea being that it's that kind of magnifying the white fruit in it, but also being a lighter fall beer. So it's lighter in color. Yeah, I mean, you know how easy Duvel and all those beers are to drink with the low in color, low in body, that sneaky ABV. But I'm looking to kind of prop up like maybe a little bit of like warming, like to make it a little more desserty, pairing up the actual pear fruit with a little bit of cinnamon to kind of give it like a warmer fall type feel or cooler weather feel, and then coupling that with the higher ABV, kind of fitting that in as a fall seasonal. So yeah,
that's interesting.
So yeah, we're gonna run that. That's one of those beers where I have more wiggle room we easier. You know what I mean? We have different parameters because when you're putting out a volume of beers in 12-ounce cans, you've got to hit certain metrics, or all you're doing is advertising or losing money.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So
I wouldn't worry too much about your yeast strain if you're going to be adding all that stuff to it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, 3787, I think is what it is, isn't it?
It might be. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, all that stuff will work well if you're going to get it. That's great. But I wouldn't spend too much time, if I were you, concentrating or worrying about fermentation flavors.
Sure.
Because all the Belgian strains are subtlety, but if cinnamon is a boomer,
sure.
And then any other thing like that.
And I'm looking. I am looking to go like, and the goal is, and I haven't had a chance to pilot this. The goal is with the cinnamon is not to be like, oh, this is a cinnamon beer. Mm. You know what I mean? The goal is to say, oh, I think there's a little cinnamon back there too.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
I do, for sure.
Yeah, like really, like I would say like low medium at the highest.
Yeah.
That's my goal. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you just want it to be, and the dream for me is, okay, so if I pull some of the spicy character out of that yeast, can I make it blend in just subtly with that cinnamon a little bit to kind of make like almost like this, I don't know, this warm spice kind of thing.
Have you made a lot of Belgians in your past?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I don't think you're going to get a whole. I mean, I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of yeast character that's going to contribute.
That'll contribute. It'll be interesting, man. I'm gonna be really interested to see, because I've done a couple back when I was at Ye Old Crankers and in Big Rapids. One of my favorite things that I did there, not that I think that the beers were exactly what I wanted them to be, because they're my first time really making Belgian beers, but I did a double and a golden strong. And so, the naming trope for golden strongs is something spinning off the devil, right? With Duvel,
sure,
and different things like that. So
I
did a little research, and one of the things I like, so I took the double, and I'm like, okay, so if the golden strong is going to be like a devil themed name. So I started doing some research on different names for God and for the devil. And this was a little bit more on the agrarian side, but for God, one of the names was Sustainer, which I liked. And so we released them side by side. And so it was crap. It was Sustainer was the double, and then shit, I'm gonna have to look it up for the
Yeah, that's when you had all the single name beers, right?
Yeah. Shoot, I'm gonna have to it wasn't Deceiver. What the hell was it? Anyways, we'll figure it out. But yeah, so I've only done a few. I've only done a few. So and again, like you said, with the fact that it's spiced up and fruited up, maybe that stuff will get squashed. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I mean you'll find it one way or another. Yeah, I would think of Belgian yeast fermentation as like kinetic energy. If you start high and you let that thing rip like a ball rolling down a hill, it'll ferment a lot out. If you want to keep some body in it, don't be afraid to go low.
Sure.
Mid-60s you'll be fine. You know what I mean?
I think it's interesting that you say that, because I think there's this notion out there where it's like, oh, it's Belgian strain, you can do whatever you want with it. You know what I mean? Or and now another thing, like whether you talk about Saison 2 or different things like that, and even like when people started using Kvike strains or whatever, and it's like, I fermented beers with no temperature control when I was working at this one place. I had no temperature control, and so I used Kvike strains.
Cool.
And and it was in plastic, so I mean, no problems.
Yeah. Best beers of your life, I'm sure.
But you can actually get away with it with those Kvike strains. Those Kvike strains are interesting little critters. Now, just because you can do something doesn't mean you have to, right? And doesn't mean it's always the best way to do it either. But yeah, so I don't know. So yeah, we've got that Belgian stuff going on, and then I'm gonna be doing a spiced beer, a pumpkin spice thing. Do you do pumpkin beer at your place?
No, not anymore. The last joint I used to, and that was a fun little thing
Sure.
to do. And it's so
do you do puree? Do you roast pumpkins? Do you use spice?
No, I would put pumpkin puree in there, like those big giant ass cans of pumpkin. Yeah. But they don't taste like anything. They taste like soil. I mean, they don't taste. That's not pumpkin. So you put it in there so you can say that it's in there, and that's all fine and dandy. Yeah. It doesn't give any color, any flavor, anything like that. But cocoa powder, cinnamon, and something else. I don't really know. I used to do it because it was neat and cool, but no, I don't do it now because right after Halloween, it's over. So whatever you haven't sold by then, you're going to sit on or dump. Really, I mean, in a pub situation for me, in my history, nobody wants a pumpkin beer in January because they know it was made 4 months ago.
Yeah, I was just talking to my buddy Steve up at Saucy. He's head brewer up there, and they were talking about when I think it was Great Lakes used to do No, it wasn't. Was it Great Lakes Christmas Ale? Yeah. Anyway, and he was saying he remembers like where there's a period of time where it was a situation where if you saw a 6-pack, you just bought it because you didn't know if you were going to see a 6-pack of it. You know what I mean? And then they made more, and then they made more, and then now there's Christmas Ale like into perpetuity, right? And so I do think there's something to like, and I'm sure and maybe they're making a different choice with it. But I mean, ideally, you run out of that beer on the 24th. You know what I mean? Like, ideally, ideally, your pumpkin beer is gone on Halloween or something like, or shortly there before Thanksgiving for sure,
or the week before.
You know what I mean? Because that's really your window for those pumpkin beers is October through Thanksgiving.
October,
and then you're kind of toast.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a slow go after that. You kind of just sit on them and go, oh,
for sure.
When do I dump it? Yeah. And then cleaning lines and all that jazz. But yeah, no, none for me. I don't do I don't do those. I don't do a red beer for like St. Patty's, like the stout. You know what I mean? Like we have a stout on tap. I don't know. I like I said, we only do a couple hundred barrels there a year. So if I make, 10 barrels of something, it's got to be something that can sell
Sure.
all year round, or at least in a seasonal manner. Like I have a quad and a dark strong that I've saved for winter.
You're brewing on a 15 barrel system, correct?
Yeah.
Do you wish it was a 7?
No.
To have to have more reps?
No. No.
I love
it. No. I mean, because I don't always max it out, anyway.
Sure.
I'm not always like, if it fits 15, whatever. I don't do that.
Yeah.
What I would rather do is sell more beer and make more beer that way, not necessarily the repetition of it.
Sure.
I have a 3-barrel little thingy that I can use, so I can always just
pilot.
do a 3. Yeah, I got a little pilot, so I can always do that, and I've done that with a rock beer. The first red with wood lager that I did it in that alt. I do the alt in that. So I'll do beers in those.
Sure.
That I just want to have short turns on them.
Yeah.
But
do you have a 3-barrel? Do you have a 3-barrel fermenter?
I will.
Do you have a 3-barrel?
Yeah, 3-barrel fermenter. Yeah.
Oh, okay, sweet. So you have a 3-barrel pilot system?
No. I just have a 3-barrel fermenter. I have a 15
I see.
So
is that steam or direct fire?
It's direct fire.
Direct fire. How is it? How is it putting that little wort in that direct fire kettle?
Well, I'll probably put like 6 barrels in it, maybe. I mean, it's a 3-barrel, right? So with 15-barrel tanks, you can fit 18, 20 barrels in there.
Absolutely, yeah.
So 3-barrel, I can put 4, maybe 5 of it. It's real tight. So I'll do almost twice that in the kettle, and then by the time hop and all that jazz and transfer and all that stuff, I may toss a half a barrel or whatever, or maybe a barrel, depending on how it works out. I mean, it's tough when you go from 15 barrels and then you're trying to calculate to a 3-barrel. You're going to lose. You're going to waste work.
Absolutely.
Just the way it's going to be. So
yeah, and we'll do split batches at our place too. So mine is steam, and so sometimes I'll turn off one of the jackets or whatever. But yeah, I'll do what I really like doing is some of the lagers that I've had success with in competition. I will do half batches, but I'll just do no sparge beers with them.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't sparge them at all. I use more grain and I mash in a little bit thinner.
Yeah.
So for me, what it is, I actually mash in at 2.68 quarts per pound.
2.68.
That's my math. I remember it. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that will generally give me the right volume I need for like a finished 9 barrels or like finished 8 barrels in the kettle.
Okay. Right on.
And so I think that it's a really nice way I think those beers drink not fuller, but I think that there's an intensity to those beers, and especially in some beers that are intrinsically like less aggressive, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
So like for instance, I have had some success with a Hellas Rock. When I've made that, it's just a little golden smoke beer. I'll do that no sparge. And I feel like you get a fuller character out of it, as opposed to like the other 5% beers that I do with traditional, sparging and everything like that. And it could just be something in my head, but it's also proved out in competition, I feel too, that I feel like those beers tend to do better in competition when I take that approach with it. So
that's great. I'll have to try that. I mean, I know that when I do the 3-barrel stuff, it is a lot less sparge. I mean, if it's a sparge, it's like a half a barrel. Nothing.
And what I'll do is I'll break down that process for anybody that's listening. I'm positive. Go back and watch it's one of the more recent brew days. Go into playlists And there's a Schwarzbier episode, Brew Day, that I have on there. It's something about gold medal winning Schwarzbier. That Schwarzbier was one of the no sparge beers that I did. And that worked out. So there's a bunch of stuff in there, but we can talk we can talk separately about the whole breakdown with all that stuff. So well, listen, Rock, we're about 2 hours in. So as always, I know time flies, man. It's really wild. I want to thank you once again for coming on and just talking. You know what I don't think most of you might not know is after just about every live stream, Rock and I do this. It's just not recorded.
It's usually not 2 hours. Sometimes it's 2 hours, but it's...
So yeah, Rock has just been a dear friend, and especially after reconnecting the last couple of years, it's just both professionally and personally, it's just been such a wonderful addition and to my life. So Rock, I want to thank you. I'll talk to you here in a few. Everybody else, please go ahead. Jamie Tripp was talking about making the trip over to Flint. You do not want to be missing the beers, and from what I hear, some very, very killer food over at Redwood Steakhouse and Brewing. We don't hit on it a ton. I do mention it, but listen, Rock has won every award you can win in this industry. The guy does next level stuff. You can go over there, get yourself some killer food and some killer beers, and go and check that out. And kind of the wrap up stuff, please do go ahead and sub to the channel, sub to the podcast, rate those things, all the thumbs up, comments, sharing them with your beer loving I almost said brewer loving. That's another. Heck, share it with your brewer loving friends too, right? But anyways, as always, appreciate you being here. Remember that on August 1st, Tuesday at 7 p.m., a little bit different time, a little bit different day, is going to be our August birthday Adam Makes Beer live stream. Uh-oh. So we will be seeing you then, everybody, and have a wonderful night. Hold on just a second, Rock. I can talk to you in the green room. Bye, guys.
In the green room. Right on.
Yeah.